Elspeth von Draken vs. Tamurkhan is a long-anticipated rivalry in Total War Warhammer. We spoke of the Tamurkhan and the Nurgle content Beyond the Thrones of Decay DLC. Now it is the Empire's turn. By the time all is said and done, I think the Empire should have 8 legendary lords and a slew of legendary heroes and pseudo-legendary lords. If the Empire is done justice as the most popular and well-fleshed-out Warhammer fantasy race, they should be the most legendary character-heavy of all the game's races. There are 4 main aspects that still need a lot of love in Total War for the Empire. Those being Steel, Faith, Gunpowder, and Sorcery. I believe the Thrones of Decay will cover the latter, Gunpowder and Sorcery. So for the quick bullet points of what this video will cover, Elspeth von Draken, there will be riots if she is not the Empire Legendary Lord. She is a highly powerful, as powerful as Balthazar Gelt wizard, but she is a death wizard, and she rides a Carmine Dragon. I do not see her coming without Theodore Bruckner as her legendary hero. They're too tied to each other as characters. Theodore Bruckner would just basically be a giant beatstick that is faction exclusive to Elspeth, but, you know, obviously if you confederate Elspeth, you would get Theodore Bruckner. Jubal Falk could be a great legendary hero that will buff up the defense of your state troops, as well as the capabilities of your gunpowder and artillery. Emmanuelle Von Liebwitz, she's technically the Elector Count of Whistland, but maybe she would only work as an advisor because she doesn't play any battlefield role. Then for the top 3 units, the Celestial Hurricanum is basically kind of like a whooshing war compass where it's got bound spells and possibly an aura. It might have like a lightning shooting attack to make it somewhat similar to the Luminarch of Hysh, or the Skaven Doomwheel, I guess. Hochland long rifles could be most similarly compared to the sniper rifle units of the game, Warlock Jezzails and Crane Gunners, but might just lose the shield for like a stand and be a little more accurate than those units. Repeater guns can come in both the form of pistols and handguns, so they would just be you'd put 6 shots in a volley of a handgun or a pistol, and you could put that in the hands of many different units, and any unit that has a pistol or a handgun, you could give it a repeater gun version. And yeah, I'll go over more units and lords and lores later. So now to dive into the devils and the details and the meat and the potatoes, so to speak. Elspeth von Draken would start as an infantry character, but she would unlock a Carmine Dragon mount. Now, her Carmine Dragon, I think, should be a named Carmine Dragon and have a unique look and probably be a little bigger than the other ones. So it is said that when Carmine Dragons are young, that they have a reddish hue in their scales, and as they grow older, they gain a deep purple in their scales. So I think her Carmine Dragon should be a deep purple, and any other Carmine Dragon in the game should have a more reddish hue. And Carmine Dragons are also said to sometimes become wizards in their own right, spellcasters, because they're so infused with the lore of death. So I think definitely Elspeth von Draken's Carmine Dragon should have 2 bound spells from the lore of death. Personally, I would love Purple Son of Xerxes and Spirit Leech, but I doubt they would give us both of those. They'd probably give us one of those, and then any of the other spells would do fine. So yeah, spellcaster, really awesome. Mount. But yeah, and a dragon mount in the Empire, yes please. Magic. So Elspeth von Draken is a level 4 wizard who uses the lore of death. She will be the most powerful death spellcaster in the game. She is a bit more powerful than Balthazar Gelt. who is also a level 4 wizard. She may be able to get the Greater Arcane Conduit, though. Pale Scythe magical weapon. Pale Scythe, made more of shadow than substance, this weapon, said to be of Elspeth's own making, is attuned to the power of Shaiish, the Wind of Death, focusing on and concentrating it to her will. This weapon has the Killing Blow special rule, and as a focus for her deathly energies, it adds +1 to Elspeth von Draken's dispelling rolls. So maybe she has a bound ability that grants more armor piercing or splash damage or something to that effect. Maybe she has some kind of contact effect that is like Death's Touch or something. I don't know. She might have some dispelling aura, kind of like the Lama Su. Possibly. The Death's Timekeeper. This hourglass is an ancient and storied artifact. It is said to contain, as its measuring sand, the dusty remnants of a dead god of old, and Van Draken, I think that's misspelled, has spent much of her unnaturally long life studying its mysteries. With it, she has perfected some limited measure of control over time and death itself. Once per player turn, Elspeth von Draken's player can re-roll a single dice of their choice concerning her or the Carmine Dragon. This can include attack saving throws, magic dice, and the artillery dice used to determine the Carmine Dragon's coruscating blast, if desired. If this re-roll is not used at the end of her player's turn, Elspeth von Draken may recover a wound previously lost in the game. So I take this as, kind of like Morger. If she is, she loses a battle, she is wounded, she'll be back the next turn. This could also, and that's how it works as far as campaign goes. As far as the battlefield goes, maybe she has increased melee defense through this, or ward save, or something along those lines. So for special rules, she has the Dark Walker ability. So Von Draken's body has become so suffused with dread magical power to the extent that she stands halfway between life and death, and at will she can become an all but insubstantial specter in human form. She is immune to psychology and all to wound rules made against her at -1. Unfortunately, she also suffers an extra effect that is listed as specifically damaging demons or the undead, such as the Lore of Light exorcism attribute. So she would probably get the ethereal rule, I think it's like 75% physical resistance. Immune to psych, her dragon might have the crumbling rule, possibly, but also the ethereal rule. She is a lore master, so she would have that skill. She would have the lore master skill in her skill tree for the Lore of Death. Basically reduces reduction of spell cost for a bunch of stuff. She has the terror rule, large target, fly, and scaly skin. So that scaly skin gives increased, missile resistance or ward save? And then the coruscating blast. The Carmine Dragon's breath weapon is a sorcerer's blast of powerful amethyst magic capable of withering metal and rendering flesh to dust as if millennia had passed in mere seconds. This breath weapon works similarly to determining the effects of a cannon shot. The maximum range of the attack's target point is 12 inches away from the monster and may be treated just like a normal breath weapon. After the target point has been selected, roll the artillery dice to create a line of effect for the blast in a straight line from the dragon. A misfire result should be any model in the line of blast suffers D3 wounds with no armor saves possible. So, it's a dragon breath, but it should be a very powerful dragon breath. I think all breath weapons should be reworked to like the breath weapons of Warhammer 3. So specifically like the Bloodthirster or Bale Taurus breath, where it shoots out multiple blasts in one blast, multiple tendrils of the blast, I guess, and they kind of stick to the ground and burn a little bit longer. I think all breath weapons should probably be reworked like that, so that they are more powerful. And you can't have Elspeth without Theodore Bruckner. Theodore Bruckner is basically the mountain from Game of Thrones. Like, role, size, he's basically the same character. And he rides a similarly sized demogryph adjusted to a regular demogryph named Reaper. So Theodore would start as an infantry and then unlock Reaper, the demogryph monster mount. And the hand, so for the special rules for Bruckner, he has the Hand of Judgment. Bruckner is the judicial champion of Nuln and the Countess's headsman, a figure hated and grudgingly respected in equal measure. While a feared warrior, given his grim demeanor and single-minded devotion to his craft, he is no leader of men. As a result, Bruckner cannot be the army's general under any circumstance, and so a force containing him will need to include another character to lead it. In any turn at which Bruckner fights in challenge, he has the Unbreakable rule. So I think give him a bound ability that is kind of like a melee debuff, so like Grimgore's kind of challenge ability. So you click on a nearby enemy, lord, hero, or so on, and Bruckner Bruckner would gain the Unbreakable rule, and you would debuff whoever you're challenging as well. Which, just makes him a really good duelist. Special rules for Reaper, the demogryph mount, causes terror, is a large target, and has slashing claws, which basically just means it gives more armor-piercing attacks. For the magic items, we have Liar's Bane, which is a magic... we have two magic weapons, actually. Liar's Bane and Stormlance. So Liar's Bane, for centuries, this long blade has been used by the city's champion in preference over the more traditional headsman's axe, where the executioner's duties are concerned with the great and powerful Nuln. Bruckner wields this mighty sword as easily as a lesser man might a rapier, and a great many dissenters, renegades, and the Countess's political rivals have found themselves a head shorter at his hands. So, in tabletop, that meant rolls to wound and to hit with Liar's Bane are made at +1. So, basically, this would probably just give him more weapon strength, melee attack, maybe melee defense. Just buffs his melee stats. Stormlance. With a bladed tip crafted from meteoric iron and graven with the runes of the heavens, this lance strikes its target like a bolt of lightning, both burning and blasting them. This weapon may be used once per game when Bruckner is conducting a charge while mounted on Reaper. The weapon counts in all respects as a lance, but in addition to its attacks has the killing blow special rule. So, in Total War you can't have two magic weapons, so maybe the Stormlance could just be an enchanted item. What's his face? Theodore Bruckner's animations, just whenever he is charging on Reaper, the Stormlance will be switched in, or maybe, you'd have a toggle ability between Liar's Bane and Stormlance, and they just kind of become one weapon in, as far as, like, the campaign screen, the weapon slot is concerned. There's different ways you can add both of them, I think. Baleflame Amulet is a talisman, gifted to Bruckner by the Magistrix Elspeth and Draken to protect him from the foul sorceries of the oncoming horde. This black gem possessed powers unguessed at and served the Magistrix's own deadly schemes. The amulet provides Bruckner with a +5 ward save. In addition, if Bruckner is slain by a model in base contact, that model then immediately suffers d6 wounds with no armor saving throw or regeneration possible. This attack has no effect if Bruckner is slain in any other circumstances. So, in Total War, I think this would just give Bruckner about, 20, 25 ward save. But other than that, I think it would also, if it's lorefully done justice, provides a bound codependent ability. So you'd have to have Elspeth von Draken on the field, and then Theodore Bruckner. And Theodore Bruckner would have to be wearing the Baleflame Amulet. But if that so happens, with Elspeth, you can click a bound ability that connects to Tamurkhan. You click Tamurkhan while you have Elspeth's ability clicked up, and boom. Literally. So, it gets nuke. Like, that kind of explosion. Just evaporates anything close to Theodore, and severely damages anything in a large radius. Yeah, it would also kill Theodore as well, but then maybe Theodore, maybe it gives reduction to wound time for Theodore too, so this ability feels a little less prohibiting or negative, you know, because you gotta kill Theodore to create that explosion. Jubal Falk is an engineer of the city of Nuln in the Empire. He is the field commander of the Nuln Ironsides, a regiment of renown that is a heavily armored handgunner unit. We already have a regiment of renown handgunner in the Silver Bullets, so I absolutely think that you could give the Nuln Ironsides, like in Jubal Falk's depiction, they are standing with Hochland long rifles behind him. Or you could give them repeater handguns, so they feel kind of more like infernal fire glaives from the Chaos Dwarves. I think regular handguns, no thanks. Nuln Ironside should either have Hochland long rifles or repeater handguns. Anyways, so Jubal Falk would make an excellent legendary hero for kind of the entirety of the Empire, but, he's most easily unlocked through Wissenland. I think you unlock him kind of like Lord Croak. You have to have the landmark, or whatever, the city, to get Lord Croak. Same thing for Jubal Falk. You have to control the city of Nuln, and you can get Jubal Falk. But a great hero for the Empire in its totality, boosting gunpowder, right? Your artillery, your handguns, rifles, pistols, any of it, grenade launchers, but also the melee defense of all of those units, and possibly the armor of all of those units. So I think he would be a very good support piece to your gunpowder. So he should have a mechanical steed mount as well. He would have the Hochland long rifle as one weapon, but he also has a pistol. Now, I think you absolutely need to give him a repeater pistol, and I also think you should give him a brace of repeater pistols. So, you would have an ability where you can swap between the weapons. Either you got your Hochland long rifle or your brace of repeater pistols. Now, the brace of repeater pistols would be, nothing like range-wise. It'd be 90 range or something. But it would deal a bunch of damage up close. And then the long rifle would have, 300 range or something. For his mercurical shot, it is a hollow bullet filled with vitriol. It can bring down the largest target, so I believe you give it so it'd be like a Marcus Wolfhart or Empire Huntsman Lord. Their 3-bound ability, 3-use bound ability sniper shot. Same thing here with the mercurical shot, and 3-bound snipe abilities. But it would also have an acid effect to it, so maybe like the burnt effect where it debuffs leadership, or perhaps more of a damage over time, like poison damage, or something. It'd either be like poison or burning, or some kind of mix of the two. Maybe it's just a brand new acid vitriol ability. There's also a 3-use, maybe, bound ability, where you can, instead of, kind of shooting like a semi-auto, like pop, 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 with the repeater pistols, you instead shoot the whole volley at once, dealing a whole bunch of damage like a blunderbuss shotgun, basically. We see the same kind of ability used in Vermintide, where you can shoot the whole volley at once. I think bringing that as a separate bound ability for his other set of guns. So it's, you have your mercurical shot, Hochland long rifle, and you have dumping out the whole volley like a blunderbuss in one shot with the pistols. And I think you could do this with all engineer characters for the Empire, or maybe all repeater gun units as well. But I think just doing it for the characters probably makes more sense balance-wise. So I think we can look at like the Dwarven Engineer or the White Gunnery for the Vampire Coast as to what a generic Master Engineer hero would look like for the Empire, as well as Jubal Falk as a legendary hero. So it might have like a rule like Master of Ballistics, which basically just gives your artillery and any ranged archer, whatever, gunner. Reload skill, maybe improved range, improved armor piercing or penetration, any number of things like that. And then maybe a rule like black powder discipline, which is just a ammo refill, because we know that's the best part about having an engineer character, is so we have to have that ammo refill ability. And then lastly, for a sniper character, he's going to be pretty well defensible. Like, he's not going to be a duelist by any means, he's not going to be good at killing things in melee, but he'll have charge defense against all, him and the Nuln Ironsides, both. Again, around 80 armor. So not super heavy armored, but definitely heavy armor. And, yeah, maybe high melee defense, like 40, but, low melee attack, like 20 maybe. And for our final Empire character we will talk about today, Emmanuelle Von Liebwitz is the Elector Count of Wissenland. So it would be cool if we could see a unique lady model when we are in the Elector Counts mechanic, when we're playing Karl Franz, or hopefully when we were playing Boris Todbringer or Marius Leitdorf, or maybe even Vlad von Karstein. Okay. That would be cool, but I don't see how we could make her a legendary lord in really any way, because she has no battlefield role. Maybe you can make her a wizard or something, make her a unique model with whatever lore, that's an idea, but otherwise I just don't think she works as a legendary lord. The most likely implementation, or the best implementation, might be as a campaign advisor in the Realms of Chaos campaign, at least for Elspeth von Draken. Otherwise, we could definitely see her pop up in the narrative, at least for that campaign. Maybe she is part of some quest, she gives you one of your main quests, or she, there's a little bit of lore blurb with her in the events. So for missing Empire units that I think could come in this gunpowder and sorcery focused DLC with Nuln and Elspeth, let's first cover repeater guns. So again, as I talked about with Jubal, there could be a bound ability for any one of these units, pulled straight from Vermintide, where you could maybe use this bound ability every 60 or 90 seconds, and it unleashes the whole volley of the 6 bullets in the cylinder of the gun at once, so it becomes almost like a more accurate blunderbuss. Maybe all these units have that, but that might be overpowered, so maybe only the Lords and Heroes and maybe RORs have that. Free Company Militia, Pistoliers, Outriders, any unit that has a gun, a pistol or a handgun, may also possibly have a repeater version, a variant. So, yeah, on the left you see the standard variant that's in game now, and on the right you can you see a little repeater version I did up. Now, these may be overtuned. Again, I'd rather start overtuned and have to peel back. Basically, I reduced each bullet's damage, and then times it by 6 for each shot in the volley, and that gave us our missile damage in total. So for the Free Company Militia, they might get repeater pistols. Now maybe you'd want to do a whole new unit like Field Engineers, so instead of Free Company Militia with repeaters being a skirmishing unit, you'd have Field Engineers with repeater pistols that are more of a support unit that can help buff up artillery or guns near them. That's just an idea. And then, yeah, Pistoliers with repeaters, same idea. Outriders with repeaters, same idea. Okay, so for the handgunners, they would literally just be an upgraded version of the handgunners. So none of their stats would change except for their missile damage. On the other hand, Nuln Ironsides, now the Nuln Ironsides might be a Hochland long rifle instead of a repeater handgunner, but I think the Nuln Ironsides could work a lot like the Infernal Guard with fire glaives if they were repeater handgunners. I think they might be better suited that way, but I think Hochland long rifles would work just as fine. I put rattling guns in here because the repeater handgunners are not automatic, but kind of semi-automatic, so like pow, 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 pow. So it'd shoot maybe 2 bullets per second instead of like 10 bullets per second like the Ratling guns. But the Nuln Ironsides, like the Infernal Guard Fireglaze, may have anti-large, they may have charge defense first large to represent them being able to hold back the Kurgan charges. But yeah, suppressive fire on the missile damage for these repeater handguns as well. So yeah, the Nuln Ironsides may be a Hochland long rifle instead of a repeater handgun. So in Jubal Falk's art, they are pictured behind Jubal Falk holding Hochland long rifles. In their own artwork, they are pictured holding kind of regular handguns, but a little bit longer. So I think they would probably be best with the repeater handguns. But I would be just as happy if they had Hochland long rifles. I absolutely don't think they should be regular handguns, though, because we already have the Silver Bullets ROR. No thanks. Give me Nuln. They are super famous unit. One of the most famous, like, RORs in Warhammer, probably. Definitely need either Hochland long rifles or repeater handguns to make them feel special. But otherwise, Hochland long rifles. They would just be a sniper unit. I think you could pretty much just copy and paste from the Warplock Jezzails and Crane Gunners of Cathay. It's a shield. They have 275 range, shield breaker. But the Hochland long rifles might not have the shield bearer to set the rifle on. They might just have the stand. So I picture it as, as the Hochland long rifles walk around, they pick their gun up and the stand kind of just folds into their body. And then when they put it down, the gun stand, then I think it would be a bipod. Yeah, a bipod swings back out and just lands on the ground where the shield bearer would be. And maybe to compensate for not having that shield in front of them, they have better accuracy and calibration distance than the other 2 similar units. Because lorefully they are known to be like the most accurate snipers in all of Warhammer lore, fantasy lore. So, Jubal Falk himself was said to snipe a Chaos Lord right off the back of a flying dragon mid-flight. That is an insane shot. So, yeah, I think these guys having a lot of accuracy would be a great thing. And then to cap off the infantry here, grenade launchers. So, if we have outriders with grenade launchers, we could certainly train guys to do that on foot and not on horseback as well. There are grenade launcher blunderbusses in lore. I don't know if they had any rules in tabletop, but yeah, it's just an infantry unit with grenade launchers. Just give us the variant. Then free company militia with dual weapons. So we already have this in game with the Sartosian militia. So it's literally just add that into the Empire. So then going on to more cavalry and chariots, war wagons additionally could get repeaters. So it'd be the kind of standard, it'd just be a repeater, yeah. Might be a better variant than any of the war wagons we have now, possibly. And then possibly war wagons with cannons. So, we can get mortars on war wagons. We got, particularly though, we got the Hellblaster volley gun in the ROR of the war wagon. So, if we can shoot a weapon that shoots in a straight line over the heads of the horses, I think we can manage that with the cannons too. So I think those 2 war wagon unit variants might bolster the war wagons to make them a little more useful. So the Celestial Hurricanum, it would basically be like the Wuxing War Compass, but maybe it has a bit of a AoE shooting attack, kind of similar to the Skaven Doom Wheel that shoots out electricity at nearby foes. Not really something where you can control the missile attack Like, I don't think it should be like the Luminarch of Hysh, that, that should be the Luminarch of Hysh's thing, that missile attack. But just having this, like, arcing electricity that shoots out at nearby enemies, I think would be cool. Otherwise, it would just possibly boost spellcasting for nearby spellcasters. Like, increase spell mastery. But its main thing would just be, it would have bound spells, probably. So, like, maybe it has the Comet of Cassandora, or Chain Lightning, or any of the Celestial Magic spells could work fine. But, I just like those two spells particularly. I think that is probably the penultimate unit that has to come with this DLC. Hochland long rifles being the next, and then repeater gunners being just a big unit that could add a lot of variance. So for some more legendary and special units, the first and foremost, we have the Marienburg class land ships, also known as the Wonder of the Age, are experimental war machines produced in Nuln for Marienburg. Having hired at vast expense steam tanks of the Empire for their own defense, the Guildmasters of Marienburg sought to possess their own equally powerful war machines. When the Imperial School of Engineers and the Dwarves would not assist, they turned to the Imperial Gunnery School of Nuln to produce something better than the steam tanks. The proposition and large sums of money offered were irresistible to the engineers, and with their countess's tacit approval, they accepted the commission. However, it quickly proved to be a far more difficult task than they had anticipated, and various disasters caused the project to become known as the Coffin Filler. As the merchant lords of Marienburg grew increasingly angry at the delay, the engineers became more and more desperate. It was Hezekiah Gutman who finally came up with a solution. The main issue had been making a boiler as small as that within the steam tank, so he reasoned, why not make the whole machine bigger? The Provost Marshal of the Gunnery School proclaimed it the wonder of the age, whilst presenting it to the Countess and the legation from Marienburg. It seemed the merchants were equally impressed because they ordered 10 of the machines. As the great horde of Tamurkhan approached Nuln, Countess Emmanuelle ordered the prototype land ships be pressed into service as part of the defenses of the city. The merchants agreed, but only with appropriate compensation. The land ships were dispatched with a strong cavalry escort of outriders to engage the mighty war machines of the Chaos Dwarves, and a brutal melee ensued between the two forces. Although only a single vessel survived the firestorm battle, they and the mounted engineers destroyed many of the enemy machines and left them in no condition to aid the main horde. For their weapons and equipment, the deck crew are armed with a variety of handguns, pistols, and sweepers to use whilst also piloting the vessel. The vessel is huge and well protected, but the boiler is large enough to a great danger to the crew if anything goes wrong or if it suffers damage in battle. And it has a light cannon installed in the prow. So yeah, I just wanted to read a bit of the lore for the land ship to get an idea of my thoughts. So I've gone back and forth many a time over Total War Warhammer's life cycle on whether the land ship should be a Dogs of War or Empire unit. Now, I would say it is absolutely a Dogs of War unit, and would make a lot of sense to come as a mount for Edvard Vanderkraal in a Dogs of War DLC, but if it were to come with the Empire, which would also make sense since they were pressed into service by Emmanuelle Von Liebwitz, so it would make a lot of sense in this DLC for the Empire as well. They're still mercenaries that were pressed into service, hired for this battle. They weren't Emmanuelle's own forces per se. They were just being built in Nuln at the time of the invasion. So I think that's important to keep in mind, that these are still Dogs of War units. But if they were to be added to the Empire, now would be the time. So in conclusion to that, the Marienburg land ship would be like if you took a steam tank and a war wagon with gunners on it, and then they had a baby, and then you doubled the size of it. That's what a Marienburg landship is basically. So, it has the mounted cannon in front. It's got a bunch of gunners on top. And, it's very tanky, but probably pretty flammable. It might even be combustible, so when it dies, it might have an explosion ability that would do damage to possibly enemy units or even friendly units in its vicinity. But beyond that, so for legendary / special units, there is artwork for it's actually, I think, artwork for the War Wagon, but it looks more like a battle tower. Now, we just had a mod come out for Bretonnia that adds like a battle tower, which kind of got me thinking, like, it could be strapped with cannons on it. It could have some handgunners riding on top of it. And it may even have some kind of bound ability where you can kind of throw grenades out of it. So, Hellhammer Cannon and Ulrich's Thunder are kind of the same unit. So, the Hellhammer Cannon is a giant cannon that I believe exists in Nuln. I think there's only 2 of these kind of cannons in the Empire. The Hellhammer Cannon in Nuln and Ulrich's Thunder in Middenheim. So, they're basically, think of them as like the Queen Bess or the Dreadquake Mortar, except you can't just get these units standard at all. They're legendary units. You can only get there's 2. There's only 2 you can get. So the Hellhammer Cannon, Ulrich's Thunder. Ulrich's Thunder might make sense more with the Middenland DLC, but I would be fine with both of them coming in this one because it's gunpowder focused. Pegasus Riders. So, we have lords and heroes that can ride Pegasus. Pretty much most of them can. So, I think we could also manage to train up some knights to ride them. Just kind of like put just regular standard Empire knights, but on Pegasus. So, maybe we could have Outriders, but on Pegasus, right? So, pistols, handguns, grenade launchers, any of those, but Pegasus Riders. Okay, so finally, to wrap up the gunpowder and sorcery DLC speculation, we got our generic lords and heroes. We should get our wizard lords, finally. And there should be a mechanic with it, I think. So, in Warhammer 2, there was a mod that not only added the wizard lords for the Empire, but a mechanic called Colleges of Magic, where you would recruit your wizards from that mechanic. You don't recruit them like regular lords. So, what I think would be really neat would be to rework to the hero level wizards as well. That works like the Kislev's Ice Court, but instead, here in the Empire, it's called Colleges of Magic. Now, I think some people find that mechanic annoying, that you can't just recruit your ice witches or whatever right up. Personally, I love it. You have to build up your wizard, and you can choose all their traits. So instead of just having to wait for the trait you want, you pick it. I love that mechanic, and I think it would be perfect for the Empire. So your wizards and your heroes are not recruited normally like the other lords and heroes. They are from this Colleges of Magic campaign mechanic. So you go to the bottom right of the screen, you click a button, and then you could train up either a wizard or hero. And it may require you to have certain buildings or certain technology. But yeah, Grand Wizard Lord. So to have all 8 of the lords so all the hero level lords we have now, plus the Gold Wizard. Which, on that same note, give us the Gold Wizard hero. Along with, you have to. This isn't a discussion. Along with this DLC, you give us the Gold Wizard CA, okay? Good talk. But we could also get a variant to the General Lord. So, in this artwork here, we have what looks to be a General Lord for the Empire, who's holding a sword in one hand and a repeater pistol in the other. So, I think just give us a variant of the generic General Lord for the Empire that has that pistol. Then, generic heroes. You have to give us, in a Gunpowder and Sorcery DLC, you have to give us the Master Engineer. And that Master Engineer has to have the mechanical steed. No regular horse. It has to have the mechanical steed. Has to. And that would give it, the Master Engineer a little bit of buff in armor too, maybe a buff in speed. Or something. Or maybe the mechanical steed has a bound ability where it can go into overdrive and that gives it speed, so maybe it's slower than a regular horse standard, but faster when you use the ability. But yeah, your Master Engineer is very much just like a generic Jubal Falk. And for the Wizard Lord mounts, so the top 4 above the yellow line are loreful mounts, like 100%. The Celestial Hurricanum would be a mount for the Celestial Lord. The Luminarch of Hysh should become a mount for the Light Lord. The Two-Headed Griffin could become a mount for the Amber Lord. So the Two-Headed Griffin, you could just give a Griffin to the Amber, but the hero level Amber Wizard already has a Griffin. So maybe we add the Two-Headed Griffin, and maybe the Two-Headed Griffin gives us bound spells. That's about all I can think of, kind of like the Lamasu. And it gives us just a couple bound beast spells. Flock of Doom or Pan's Pelt or whatever. Carmine Dragon for the Death Wizard. So, Carmine Dragons are pretty rare. I don't think they should become a unit for the Empire. But they are said to be sometimes mounts for certain people. And certainly those would be Death. It makes the most sense to have them as Death Wizard Lords. I think that's the only place that Carmine Dragon should exist, as Elspeth's mount, and then as the Death Wizard Lord's mount. But these Carmine Dragons would be of a reddish hue, whereas Elspeth's would be that deep purple, because hers is older and more ancient and powerful. And then below the yellow line, I think for the Bright Jade Shadows and Gold Wizards, it would be Gray Wizard, not a Shadows Wizard, but technically the same thing. For posterity's sake, right? Like it's going to be less incentive to pick these lords if they don't get a unique mount. So I think, along giving the loreful mounts to the ones above the yellow line, maybe these ones should get unique mounts too. Now, there is one piece of artwork that shows a flying tower, I believe, for the Bright Wizards. Now, this is kind of crazy. It's a giant flying tower. It's pretty out there. I don't know if we want to add that into the game or not. It might, have a bound fireball kind of attack with it. That's about all I can think of. But, maybe you just give the Bright Wizard like a Sun Dragon instead from the High Elves. It would make sense for the Empire to get kind of High Elf mounts, because that's where the Empire learned magic from, is from Teclis and the High Elves and whatnot. So, maybe we replace that flying tower with a Sun Dragon and just call it a day. For the Jade Wizard, we could do a Forest Dragon in that same vein, but I think a Great Stag to be a little more unique might be cool, and it's like a monstrous cavalry. For the Grey Wizard, a Moon Dragon might be something. I couldn't think of anything else. Drop down in the comments and tell me what you think, if you have another idea. A Steam Tank for the Gold Wizard. I think a Steam Tank mount for any Lord or Hero might be cool. Maybe for the Master Engineer, or for the General with the Repeater Pistol or something. If any Wizard were to get a Steam Tank mount, it would be the Gold Wizard. And I was just trying to think of unique mounts, so yeah. I want to just review how my thoughts are working on how the Thrones of Decay DLC should work, as I'm developing this series of videos on it. So, for the Legendary Lords, we got Elspeth von Draken for the Empire, Tamurkhan for Nurgle, Grimberlixen for the Dwarves, And then for the free legendary hero, Malachi McKyson, and then the legendary hero that comes with the DLC, Jubal Falk, and then Theodore, Bruckner, and Kayzk the Befouled as two unadvertised legendary heroes, because I think Kayzk is very tied to Tamurkhan, and Theodore is definitely tied to Elspeth. I feel like I glossed over the Nurgle characters too much. I really didn't talk about Tamurkhan or Kayzk the Befouled's rules in my Nurgle video on this Thrones of Decay. So, Tamurkhan the Maggot Lord is one of Nurgle's most powerful mortal champions, riding atop his mighty toad dragon Bubalos. He enacts the Plague God's will throughout the mortal realms. It has a missile weapon called the Lashing Tongue, which in Total War might just be part of its melee animations, or maybe it could be a bound ability, but I don't think it would be an innate missile weapon, though. Melee weapons, the Black Cleaver has Crushing Jaws and a Befouled Bulk. So Tamurkhan's a named character that is a single model. He has the Feast of the Maggot Lord ability. So in tabletop, this means Tamurkhan's true form is that of a hideous maggot, like parasite capable of burrowing into possessing the bodies of his enemies in battle. If this model is slain before this model is removed from play, you can pick one enemy hero within 3 inches of this model. That hero suffers D3 mortal wounds. If that hero is slain by those mortal wounds, this model is not slain. D6 wounds allocated to this model are healed, and any that remain to be allocated to are negated. If that hero is not slain by these mortal wounds, this model is removed from play. So, this means that maybe he has a unique ability where if Tamurkhan dies and he is near any lord or hero, enemy lord or hero, he can then use his ability. Or maybe it just automatically does it, and, you take over the body of that hero, that enemy hero, and completely replace them. It would definitely be a unique new ability to Total War, but I think it could be an awesome death ability, where I think maybe automatically just works, just if there's an enemy hero near Tamurkhan when he dies, the maggot tries to take over that body. And, he would obviously lose Bubalos, his toad dragon mount, when he dies, but he would, as long as he is able to revive himself by taking over an enemy hero or lord, then he'll just go back to his normal self in the next battle, with Bubalos, his toad dragon, which I think would make the most sense for Total War, maybe. His Killer of Kings rule, Tamurkhan loves nothing better than the challenge of hacking apart an enemy lord. So you can reroll hits for attack made with this model's Black Cleaver that target a hero. So I think just give him a bound ability that kind of, like Theodore or Bruckner or Grimgore, just debuffs an enemy character to make Tamurkhan a better duelist. Nurgle's favorite son, Papa Nurgle can be a fickle god, but Tamurkhan was once his most favorite son. In your hero phase, you can heal up to D3 wounds allocated to this model. So maybe he has 2 or 3 of uses of a bound ability that just gives him healing. Just a self-heal bound ability that he gets to have. And then he has a command ability, so Roar of Command. Tamurkhan can unleash a great bellowing roar, calling upon the horde at his command to crash down relentlessly upon his enemies. You can use this command ability at the start of your charge phase, if this model is your general and is on the battlefield. If you do so, you can reroll charge rolls for friendly Tamurkhan's horde units while they are wholly within 28 inches of this model in that charge phase. So I think in Total War, this just gives him maybe a bound ability that will any friendly units within the aura of this ability around Tamurkhan will get charge bonus and maybe leadership. For the Toad Dragon itself, and Bubalos would be a unique, a little more powerful version of that, but the Toad Dragon, again, would be a unit unto itself. It would be a large target. It has Scaly Skin 3+ in tabletop, so that means it would have lots of missile resistance in Total War. It's immune to psychology because it causes terror. Anything that causes terror is also immune to psych. Then it is a colossal beast. So, such is the vast size of the beast, it is uncommonly hard to kill by normal means. Its bulk and resilience is such that arrows and blades are little more account than pinpricks and even cannon fire, and powerful magics must strike at the vitals of such a creature in order to slay it. The creature may only be wounded by attacks of strength 4 or higher, and regardless of an attack strength, the Great Beast may never be wounded on better than a 3+. If the Great Beast is subject to a magic spell or special attack that would cause it to be slain outright, it suffers d6 wounds instead. This creature is so massive it can crush dozens beneath its bulk and annihilate great swaths of men with the lash of its tail. The monster's Thunder Stomp inflicts 2d6 hits. So, I think it would be one of the bigger units in the game, so comparable to the Elemental Bear or the Dread Saurian. Unspeakable Foulness is basically just a rule that will give us a breath attack, a dragon breath attack. But this one will be more acidic in nature. So maybe more like a bile attack. And then again, the Tongue Lash may give a bound missile ability, but otherwise might just be part of the Toad Dragon's animations. And then we have Kayzk the Befouled, which maybe him and his Rot Knights are also maggots like Tamurkhan. I'm not sure it says that anywhere in lore, but I think it might make sense. I think it'd be cool if Kayzk and the Rot Knights were kind of plague ogres, and that we got those as a unit in this DLC, and the Rot Beasts are kind of like a Nurgle corrupted form of like Mournfangs or Rhinox or something, to really hone in that monstrous cavalry feel. That's just an idea. But yeah, Kayzk the Befouled rides a Rot Beast. He has a hand weapon and shield, or a shield and lance, and is heavily armored. Special rules: he has the Will of Chaos, Eye of the Gods, Mark of Nurgle, Corrupted Flesh, Fear, Poisoned Attacks. So basically any other Nurgle unit. But he also has, him and the Rot Knights and the Rot Beasts have regeneration. So monstrous cavalry with regeneration, very, very powerful. So that should about cover everything a Gunpowder and Sorcery Empire DLC should be concerned about. Again, I think there should be also a Mid-Inland focused DLC, and that should about cover the Empire for Total War. I do also think there should be a slew of FLC lords, heroes, pseudo-legendary lords, but we'll cover that more in other videos for the Empire. For now, thank you for watching. Take care. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe, share, even, maybe. But yeah. Have a good one. Have a good week, month, year. Have a good life. Thank you. Bye-bye now.